Hi viewers, thank you so much for joining me today. Let me take you into the very beginning of this emotional journey. Diep wakes up early, gently greeted by her mother's soft voice calling her to come downstairs. The house is bathed in morning light, and there's a peaceful feeling that something meaningful is about to begin. Diep feels both excitement and comfort, knowing she's at home with family, but also sensing a small flutter of nerves at what the day will bring. As Diep gets ready, her mind wanders between thoughts of her friends and the tasks ahead. She helps her mom around the kitchen, preparing breakfast and checking in on her father, everyone under this one roof, doing their part to start the day. Diep's heart is full. She's grateful for her family's care, yet there's a little anticipation building inside her. When the rhythm of the day picks up, Diep heads out to a project, maybe school, maybe something more personal. She steps into the sunlit streets, noticing how the world around her seems fresh, as if even the trees and the bamboo leaves are whispering encouragement. She glances at the path ahead, imagining the moment she'll face, the challenges and smiles waiting for her. Soon, she arrives at the place she's been preparing for. Hi, she greets everyone softly. There's James and other team members who look up and return the greeting. James, the CEO, watches Diep with a supportive look in his eyes. He offers her a warm nod, as if saying, "Take your time. You've got this." Diep feels her nerves settle. She's not alone. She's here to learn, to share, to grow. Inside the project space, Diep is greeted with busy activity. She's given tasks, simple steps at first, then more complex ones. She sweats a little under the pressure, but also laughs as she figures things out alongside her friends. There's clattering tools, soft chatter, and the smell of fresh work in the air. James moves among the team, offering encouragement. "Good job, keep going." And Diep feels a surge of pride whenever he acknowledges her efforts. At one point, Diep almost falters. A moment of confusion, maybe a mistake in aligning something, but James and a mentor appear and gently guide her back. They reassure her it's okay to make mistakes. This kindness gives Diep confidence. She straightens her posture, takes a breath, and tries again. Success follows. The group claps. Diep's face lights up with a glowing smile. She's proud, not just of her work, but of having taken a step forward, supported by her community. Time passes, and Diep moves on to something different, a snack break, perhaps next to some bamboo shoots drying in the sun. She and James chat casually about home, about small things that matter, sharing laughter. "How is your family? How's her little brother doing?" The conversation is warm, and Diep feels a sense of belonging growing inside her. Later, Diep returns to another task, a cleanup or maybe organizing. She sweeps, picks up tools, arranges supplies. She repeats each detail carefully, but now with a quiet confidence. James nods in approval. She knows she's doing well. Her energy flows between calm joy and focused determination. Around this time, someone new notices, a visitor or inspector, Mother Jiang, or maybe Detective Lee, arriving to check the place. Diep feels a ripple of worry, but James gently reassures her, "We expect this. Just be yourself." He explains the visitor is here to ensure everything is safe and fair. They speak briefly, with respect and courtesy. Diep stands by, feeling proud that her project is taken seriously. There's relief when the visitor leaves with a smile, perhaps commending the group's effort. Now the clock nears the end of the morning. James gathers everyone to share updates. "We finished this part, now we're starting the next." Diep listens closely, heart racing again as new responsibilities are laid out. She glances at her family, remembering their support, and Aaron catches her eye and gives a thumbs up. Diep smiles back and nods. Next, there's a plan for a training session later, maybe next week, a way to build everyone's skills further. Diep feels hopeful about what's ahead. She's already grown. She can tell James believes in her, and that belief feels like sunshine warming her soul. Just before lunch, Diep flashes back to earlier at home. Her mother's gentle care, her father's little joke, brother's cheerful laughter. That memory anchors her. She closes her eyes briefly and breathes in deeply. She's ready for the afternoon. And with that, Diep walks over to join the team in the lunchroom. Her voice soft but determined, she says, "Let's do this." The group responds with friendly clatter, passing dishes, sharing bites. Diep laughs as James cracks a joke, and everyone responds with laughter. It's a mix of hard work and joy, collaboration and support. By the time the clock reaches around 20 minutes in, Diep has already experienced a full morning, a home filled with love and encouragement, stepping out into a new challenge, learning hands-on, feeling both nervous and proud, supported by James and the team, and ending with hope for what comes next. She's grown already and she's excited. The sun was higher in the sky now. Warm light fell gently through the windows of the workroom, where Diep and the team had gathered after lunch. The soft hum of conversation filled the air as everyone began returning to their tasks, some stretching their arms, others sipping tea slowly. There was a peaceful sense of togetherness, like everyone was breathing the same rhythm, moving forward step by step. Diep sat at the edge of a table for a moment, feeling the soft warmth on her skin, her fingers gently resting on a wooden box she had been building earlier. The bamboo handles she carved still smelled fresh, and her hands bore little cuts from her careful work. She looked at her fingertips and smiled gently. These little wounds, she thought, are signs that I'm really doing something. I'm learning. James noticed her sitting there quietly. He walked over slowly, his steps calm and reassuring. "How are you feeling, Diep?" he asked softly, sitting across from her, his eyes kind and full of genuine care. Diep looked up and hesitated, then said with honesty, "A little tired, but also happy. I didn't think I could do all of that this morning." James smiled warmly. "You did more than I expected, and that's what makes me proud." Those words filled her chest with warmth. They weren't loud or grand, but they reached deep into her heart. Diep lowered her gaze for a moment, blinking away a small tear she didn't want James to see. Just then, the door opened with a creak, and Aaron and Lean came in carrying a small stack of colorful cloth bags and samples. "It's time," Aaron said cheerfully, "for the group project we planned." James stood up and clapped his hands softly. "All right, everyone, let's come together." The room filled with quiet movement as chairs were pushed, papers shuffled, and voices grew louder with excitement. Everyone gathered in a circle. Young women like Diep, older aunties who joined to support the initiative, and a few shy younger students who were just learning. It felt like a small village inside that one room. James explained the task. "We're making welcome packages for the new members arriving next week. Every bag should be filled with small tools, messages of hope, and handmade items from today." As he spoke, Diep listened closely. She could hear the sincerity in his voice, the way he cared for every person here, not just as a worker or a name on a list, but as someone with dreams and value. Diep got to work quickly. She teamed up with Lean and a quiet girl named Hannah, who looked nervous. "Hi," Diep said gently to Hannah. "Do you want to fold the paper notes with me?" Hannah nodded slowly. Her hands trembled slightly as she picked up the first paper. Diep noticed and didn't say anything. She just smiled warmly, showing Hannah how to fold gently, slowly, with care. As they folded together, Diep told a story about her grandmother, how she used to fold paper birds when Diep was little, and how each bird carried a wish. "When I was sad," Diep said softly, "my grandmother would place one in my hand and say, 'Your heart is already strong. Just let it rest for a while.'" Hannah looked at Diep, eyes wide. "That's beautiful," she whispered. Diep nodded. "You can put that strength into these folds, too." Together, they folded birds and hearts and stars. For every person who would open a welcome bag next week, there would be a symbol of comfort and care. James walked by now and then, praising each team's creativity. "Very nice work. I love how you match the colors. Great folding, girls. These are really beautiful." His voice wasn't loud, but full of quiet power, gentle leadership that made everyone feel safe and seen. Later in the afternoon, something small but difficult happened. One of the girls, Twee, accidentally spilled water on a pile of finished notes. The ink smudged and colors ran like tiny tears across the paper. She froze, tears welling in her eyes. "I ruined it," she whispered. Diep was the first to kneel beside her. She didn't scold or rush to fix it. She just placed a hand gently on Twee's shoulder and said, "It's okay. Let's breathe first." James arrived too, calmly kneeling down. "This is a chance," he said. "Mistakes are the door to understanding. Let's walk through it together." The team gathered. They didn't shame Twee. Instead, they picked out what could be saved, dried the rest, and even turned some of the smudged papers into art, cutting out flower shapes from the blurred colors. What began as a mistake became something beautiful. Twee smiled again, not because everything was perfect, but because she had been accepted, even in her lowest moment. By the late afternoon, the sun was golden, stretching long shadows across the floor. The group was tired, but in a peaceful way, the kind of tired that comes after doing something meaningful with people who care. James stood at the front again. "I want to say thank you," he began. "Not just for the work, but for the way you supported each other today. This is how we build not just a business, but a family. And I believe in every single one of you." The room was silent for a moment. Some looked at the floor, touched by his words. Others wiped quiet tears. Diep closed her eyes. In that moment, she felt safe, respected, and deeply seen. Not as a number, not as a girl from a small village, but as a young woman with real power in her hands and love in her heart. As the day ended, the group slowly packed up. Diep picked up her belongings, held her hand gently over her finished work, and whispered to herself, "I really did this." James caught her on the way out. "You did more than you think, Diep." She smiled at him, a real smile, one that came from deep inside. The next day, the weather was quiet, but the emotions inside James's heart were like a storm. He sat in his room early in the morning, looking at an old photo of him and Diep. They were smiling in the picture, holding hands, full of hope. But now that hope felt far away, he gently touched the photo as if he could touch the past, as if he could feel Diep's hand again. Suddenly, he heard a soft knock on the door. It was Lean. She came in slowly, holding a small cup of tea. She looked tired but calm. Her eyes were red, like she had been crying alone. "I made you tea," she said, her voice small. James nodded. "Thank you." She sat beside him. There was silence between them, but it was not an empty silence. It was full of things they didn't know how to say. "I saw Diep," Lean whispered after a long pause. James turned to her quickly, his eyes wide. "You saw her? When?" "Last night. She was walking to the temple. I followed her. She didn't see me. She looked lost." James closed his eyes. "I want to talk to her. I want to say sorry. I want to hold her hand again." "She's hurting," Lean said. "But you're hurting too." James shook his head slowly. "It's my fault. I left her. I made choices without asking her what she needed." Lean touched his arm. "You did what you thought was best. But maybe now it's time to ask what she needs." James didn't speak for a long time. The tea got cold. The room stayed quiet. Later that day, he went outside, walking slowly down the path toward the hills. The sun was hiding behind gray clouds. Everything around him looked heavy, like it was carrying sadness too. He walked past the fields, past the river, until he saw the old tree by the temple. Diep was sitting there. She didn't see him at first. She was looking up at the sky, holding something in her hands. Maybe a letter, maybe a memory. James stopped a few steps away. He didn't want to scare her. He spoke softly. "Diep." She turned slowly. Her face showed surprise, then confusion, then pain. "I didn't come to make things worse," James said. "I came because I can't stay away anymore. I've been thinking about you every day, every night, every moment." Diep stood up, not speaking yet. Her eyes were full of tears. "You left, James," she finally said, her voice shaking. "You left when I needed you most." "I know," he whispered. "And I was wrong. I thought I was protecting you. I thought I had to fix everything alone. But all I did was break what we had." Diep looked down. "I waited. Every day, I waited for you to come back." James stepped closer. "I'm here now. I want to understand. I want to listen. I want to try again. If you'll let me." She was crying now, the kind of crying that comes from deep inside, not just sadness, but years of holding it in. She didn't answer right away. She turned and walked a few steps away, then stopped. "Do you remember," she asked, still not facing him, that day in the rain, when we stood outside the cafe, soaking wet, laughing like children. James smiled sadly. Yes, you gave me your scarf, even though you were freezing. I thought, she said, her voice shaking again, that nothing could break us. I thought we were stronger than anything. James walked to her slowly and stood beside her. Maybe we can still be strong. Together. I don't want to force anything, Diep. But I want to be honest. I miss you. I love you. And I'm not giving up on us. She looked at him now. Her eyes were full of emotion, but also full of fear. It's not easy to trust again. I know, he said. And I'll wait. As long as it takes. She didn't speak again, but this time she didn't walk away. Back at the house, Lean and Hannah were talking. Hannah had started drawing again. She was drawing a picture of her family, her mom, her dad, and a house in the middle. She held up the paper. Mom, she said, do you think Daddy will live with us again? Lean's eyes filled with tears. I don't know, baby, but he's trying, and trying means something. James returned just before sunset. He looked different, tired but calmer. Lean met him at the door. She didn't say yes, James said, but she didn't walk away. That's a start, Lean replied, and I think she needs time. That night, James sat with Hannah and read her a bedtime story. She held his hand tightly. Don't go again, she whispered sleepily. I won't, he promised. Not ever again. And in that quiet moment, something small but strong was growing again. Hope. A hope that maybe, just maybe, the broken pieces could become something beautiful. Not the same as before, but something real. Something true. James looked out the window as Hannah slept beside him. The stars were starting to shine. He knew the road ahead would not be easy. But for the first time in a long time, he was ready to walk it. Not alone. Never again alone. That night was quiet. The stars above the village sky looked soft and gentle, like they were watching over everyone in silence. James couldn't sleep. He sat outside on the wooden porch, listening to the wind moving through the trees. The air was cool, but not cold. Still, something inside his heart felt heavy, like a weight he could not put down yet. He looked up at the sky and whispered softly, Diep, I don't know if I can ever fix what I broke, but I will keep trying. Inside, Hannah was fast asleep, holding her little stuffed bunny tightly in her arms. James had tucked her in and kissed her forehead. She had smiled in her sleep, and that smile gave him strength. He didn't want to lose that ever again. In another room, Lean sat beside a small candle. She was writing something in her notebook. She had started journaling again, something she hadn't done in years. Her thoughts were full of questions about the past, about the future, and about how she felt watching James and Diep slowly find their way back to each other. A part of her still hurt, but another part it was healing, little by little. The next morning, James woke up early. The sky was still dark. He quietly made breakfast for Hannah, just rice porridge with a bit of salt, the way she liked it. He wanted to take care of her. It was the one thing he knew he could do right now. Later, he stood by the gate and watched as Hannah ran ahead to school, her little backpack bouncing with every step. She turned around and waved. Bye, Daddy. I love you. James's heart squeezed gently. I love you too, he whispered. After Hannah left, James went walking again. Not far this time, just to the small garden where Diep's mother used to grow flowers. The flowers were gone now, but the soil was still there. He knelt down, touched the earth, and began pulling weeds slowly. It was his way of remembering her, of saying sorry, of doing something with his hands while his heart was still too full to speak. An hour later, he heard footsteps behind him. Why are you in my mother's garden? Diep's voice came softly without anger. James stood up slowly and turned around. His hands were covered in dirt. I thought maybe I could clean it a little. She loved this place. I wanted to show respect. Diep looked at him for a long moment. She would have liked that, she said, then sat on the nearby bench. She always said gardens were like people. If you stop caring for them, they start to disappear. James sat on the ground again, his voice quiet. Maybe that's what happened to us. I stopped taking care of what we had. Diep didn't answer, but she didn't leave either. That was enough for now. She watched him for a while as he worked. The silence between them wasn't empty this time, it was full of thoughts, memories, quiet forgiveness beginning to form. After a long pause, Diep finally spoke again. I still wear the bracelet you gave me. I don't know why. Maybe because it reminds me of the good days. James smiled gently. That was one of the best days. When we promised to start our dream business together. You believed in me so much back then. I still believe in you, Diep said softly, but I'm scared. James nodded. Me too. Tears started rolling down her cheeks. Not loud tears, just quiet ones, like rain sliding down a window. I wanted us to build something that lasted, she whispered. A family, a home, not just buildings and deals. You went so far away, James. I needed you here. He crawled forward on his knees, his hands still dirty, and gently placed one hand over hers. I see it now. I didn't see it before, but I see it now. I was chasing success because I thought it would make you proud. But you just wanted me. She closed her eyes, holding back more tears. James continued, his voice full of emotion. I thought I had to be strong. I thought I had to carry everything. But being strong doesn't mean being alone. I know that now. I know I should have listened. I should have stayed. There was silence again, long and heavy. But this time it was healing. Diep finally looked into his eyes. For the first time in a long time, there was softness in her gaze. Maybe, she said slowly, we can start again. Not from the same place, but from here. James blinked, unsure if he had heard her correctly. You mean try again? She nodded once, slowly, gently, for Hannah, for us. But no more promises you can't keep. Just truth. James's eyes filled with tears. He wanted to say so many things, but all he could say was thank you. They sat together in the garden for a long time. No plans, no pressure, just presence. It was the beginning of something new. Something small but powerful. That evening, James returned home and told Lean everything. She listened quietly, nodding. I'm happy for you both, she said softly. It's not easy, but it's real. And that matters. James looked at her with deep respect. Thank you for being here. For helping me even when I didn't deserve it. Lean smiled. You're doing your best now. That's enough. As night fell, the house was quiet again. James walked into Hannah's room and kissed her goodnight. Then he stepped outside and looked up at the sky. The stars were back, shining gently. He closed his eyes and breathed deeply. Not everything was fixed. Not everything was perfect. But something inside him had changed. This time, he was ready to stay. This time, he was ready to rebuild, not just with bricks or money, but with love, patience, and truth. And in the garden of his heart, something new was growing. Not fast, but strong and real. The rain came softly that morning, like a blessing from the sky. Not loud, not wild, just gentle drops falling onto the earth, touching the leaves, the windows, the roof of the small house. James stood by the window, holding a cup of warm tea. He watched the raindrops and felt a quiet peace inside him, a feeling he hadn't known for a long time. Behind him, the sound of little footsteps came closer. Daddy, Hannah whispered, wrapping her arms around his waist. Can we watch the rain together? James smiled and lifted her into his arms. Of course, sweetheart. Let's sit here and just listen. They sat on the floor, side by side, leaning against the wall. Hannah rested her head on his chest, and James held her close. In that moment, time slowed down. There were no meetings, no worries, no pain. Just love, pure and soft and safe. In the kitchen, Diep was cooking. The smell of fresh soup filled the house. She moved gently now, her hands no longer rushed or tense. Her heart still had scars, but each day, she chose to open it again. And James noticed everything. The way she placed the spoon down quietly. The way she looked at Hannah with deep, protective love. The way she sometimes looked at him, not with anger now, but with memory and maybe hope. Later that day, the three of them ate together. The first meal they shared at the same table in years. No one said anything special, but something special was happening. Hannah giggled over her rice. Diep smiled softly. James looked down, hiding tears that were not from pain, but from quiet joy. In the days that followed, James kept his promise. He stayed. He helped with breakfast. He walked Hannah to school. He visited the garden every morning, planting small flowers one by one. Each one felt like a new beginning. Lean came to visit one weekend. She brought a small gift, a photo frame with an old picture of James, Diep, and baby Hannah. The picture had dust on it when she found it, but she cleaned it carefully. "I thought maybe it was time you had this again," she said with a warm smile. James took the frame, staring at it for a long time. "Thank you," he said, his voice breaking. "Thank you for not giving up on me." Lean nodded. "I knew you were lost, but now I see you coming back." One evening, James and Diep sat outside, wrapped in a soft blanket as the stars returned above them. "Do you ever wish we could go back?" he asked quietly. Diep shook her head slowly. "No, because if we went back, we might not grow. I don't want the old version of us. I want this one, the one that learned how to fall and stand again." James reached for her hand, and this time, she didn't pull away. The wind whispered around them like a song of healing, of patience, of love that didn't rush, but stayed even when it hurt. Weeks passed, then months, and slowly, gently, the pieces of their family came back together. Not perfect, but real. And in that truth, they found something more beautiful than before. They found home, a home built not with walls or windows, but with forgiveness, time, and second chances. Thank you for listening to this story. If it touched your heart even just a little, please like, subscribe, and leave a comment below. Your support helps these stories live on and brings hope to others who need it. From our hearts to yours, thank you. Yellow Heart.